Things continue to take a negative turn surrounding this Philadelphia Phillies team. In addition to losing 9 of their past 10 games and being swept by the Pittsburgh Pirates, that there is a growing skepticism of the organization's ability to retain Kyle Schwarber moving forward. As we know, he is entering the final year of his contract and will be a free agent at the conclusion of the season, but a contract extension has not been agreed to yet, and the price point has only raised. We do have a report regarding why this is the case, what is sort of the outlook, and do want to dive into why it is so important for Kyle Schwarber to remain with this Phillies team. Now, before I dive fully into the story, do want to remind you guys, as always, to make sure you are hitting that subscribe button. At this point in time, only 28% of you guys watching these videos have subscribed to us here at Phillies Digest. Regardless of how dark this season continues to get, we're going to keep plugging along here on Phillies Digest and do believe there are better days ahead. But not today, as we are talking about Kyle Schwarber's extension conversation, with the headline of this article stating Kyle Schwarber predicted to refuse Phillies extension. And to hear out the article and see exactly what they are saying here, that it writes, in his age 32 season, Schwarber is enjoying his best production ever, slashing 260, 387, and 559 with 19 home runs so far. He seems poised to carry the Phillies offense toward another postseason run. However, that success could make it more difficult for the team to plan their future around him. Schwarber is set to become a free agent at the end of the year if the Phillies are unable to lock him up into an extension first. And Rowan Conver of Fox Sports predicted that Schwarber would refuse those overtures from his current team. Quote, Schwarber is in the midst of the best offensive season of his career, Kabner wrote. I have a hard time thinking or seeing a reason why he would agree to sign an extension in season before testing free agency, even if he ultimately does end up back with the Phillies. And to give the full context of this quote here, did want to provide a little more details. Another article, this one from Athlon Sports, with the same kind of premise here, and it writes, if it were within the Phillies' control, that wouldn't happen. However, it is not. The Phillies reportedly offered Schwarber an extension over the offseason, an offer Schwarber refused. According to one analyst, Schwarber won't be deprived of his chances at testing the market. When asked in a recent piece from Fox Sports, writer Rowan Kabner predicted that Schwarber will not sign an extension with the Phillies. Quote, the fit is great, and he seems to enjoy being in Philadelphia, he wrote. But I wonder if it might be too late now, given just how good he has been this year. Schwarber is in the midst of his best offensive season of his career. He's been the 7th best hitter in MLB by WRC+. He's the only player on the team slugging over 500, and he'll be one of the best bats on the market. I have a hard time thinking or seeing a reason why he would agree to sign an extension in season before testing free agency, even if he ultimately does end up back with the Phillies. Now, I do like that he ends with a little bit of positivity that is not off the table here, but what this situation has changed is you are now paying the premium for Kyle Schwarber. That if he is going to be back on this Phillies team, which I do think has to be the case, that I do want Kyle Schwarber to be a part of this franchise moving forward. I want him to retire in red pinstripes, and for all the problems that we continue to talk about with this Phillies team, pretty much none of them in connection to Schwarber. He's been right in the mix for the home run leaders in MLB from start to finish this season, that he is a guy that has led the league in home runs in a Phillies uniform. It is not a coincidence that this organization has shifted into a winning mentality, has had far better results from a postseason perspective since Schwarber came to this team. But that is important to continue moving forward. Now, to give his full stats for the season, Schwarber has hit 20 home runs, 46 RBIs, a 379 on-base percentage, a 557 slugging percentage with an OPS plus of 158. Across his 235 at-bats, he has 60 hits, has struck out 71 times, but also walked 43 times as well. We've seen him moved around a little bit, that there's been the Kyle Schwarber leadoff experience for the past several years to this point, a lot more of him in the cleanup spot, and it has not exactly translated from a team perspective, but again, I can't throw this fully on Schwarber. Now, when reflecting on the situation as a whole, there is a pretty concerning quote that popped up as I was kind of prepping for this video from a couple months ago. This was coming into the season, Dave Dombrowski was asked about the situation with Kyle Schwarber, and we do sort of know, or there have been reports that there is sort of a holdup in what the years were, and that was more of the driving force, more so the length of the contract and the dollar sign commitment there. But I do think the price point has changed. And in particular, when you look ahead to the free agent market, it's really going to be Kyle Schwarber and Pete Alonso as the two best bats on the market there, with Schwarber and everything that he brings on top of, like, from a winning perspective, a leadership, a player who you will not see another MLB player say a bad word about across all baseball circles here. It is going to be a steep price tag. But the quote that is concerning to me comes from Dave Dombrowski himself. And what he says in this article states, states Schwarber, who's in the final year of his 4-year, $79 million contract, which is an absolute bargain, by the way, based on how he's produced, he said he wants to stay in Philadelphia. Since signing ahead of the 2022 season, the Phillies have made 3 consecutive postseason appearances, including the World Series, and he has hit 149 home runs, including 19 this season, now up to 150 and 20 this season. During an appearance on the show with New York Post insiders Joel Sherman and John Heyman, president of baseball operations Dave Dombrowski was asked about Schwarber's future with the team. Quote, "Well, Schwarbs has been fantastic for us," Dombrowski said via onpattison.com. "4 years, we've made it to the postseason the previous 3, and I hope we do it again this year. He's not only a quality performer, he's a clubhouse leader, he's a gamer, he's what you want on a club. We would love to keep him part of this organization for the long term, there's no doubt. We'll see where he takes us. He's putting up big numbers, and I'm sure there will be a lot of other clubs that are interested in him too. But we'd love to keep him a part of the organization and hope it happens." I just really find it odd, the fact that you would even bring up the other teams being interested. This is a question about your desire to keep Kyle Schwarber within the franchise, and you had every opportunity to just rave about this guy, talk about how badly you want to keep him. You could have phrased it anything like that, and the fact that he left the door open does not make me feel great about this Kyle Schwarber conversation. And the other damning reality that I think has finally landed upon all of us is we have lived in this era of Phillies baseball, that they've built up the big bats that aren't performing right now with not just Bryce Harper, but bringing in Kyle Schwarber, a guy like Nick Castellanos, and we're starting to see this era close very quickly right in front of us. One way or another, this team is going to look very different next year. And obviously, if they can rekindle things, find a little bit of getting back on the right track and winning a lot of baseball games moving forward, it becomes a bit more tolerable to have this run it back type conversation. But we've been doing this for several seasons at this point without nearly the needle moving moves that need to be made to improve this team. And to take a look at the contract situation to kind of get into what I am talking about here, that I did want to pull up this from spotrac.com that, of course, Trey Turner under contract for the foreseeable future. Bryce Harper still under contract quite a bit, but JT Realmuto will be a free agent at the end of the season. Kyle Schwarber will be a free agent at the end of the season. Nick Castellanos, 1 more year left on that deal. Even Max Kepler will be a free agent, and that's a guy that I don't think is in the running to be re-signed. Certainly not for $10 million, I will tell you that. Ranger Suarez, set to be a free agent, and I do find it very unlikely that that is a guy that will be retained by this Phillies team. When you think about how much pitching there is, I just find a hard time wrapping my brain around how they're going to commit significant money. This is a guy, Ranger, who's earned himself like a $20 million per year type deal based on his play over these past couple seasons. And you can throw the injury concerns, you can throw some of these flaws, but I do think that there's going to be teams out there willing to pay that in a way that the Phillies just straight up aren't. And when you talk about all these as a whole, where do you go from here? This Phillies team isn't that far off, but they certainly still have steps to take. And I get you can't improve without losing out on other guys. That obviously, say Nick Castellanos for an example here, and I know he has one more year on his contract. So this is in this offseason conversation with Casty, who, by the way, I think's been totally fine this year. One of the least concerning guys that I've had on this Phillies team. He is who he is. He has his flaws. He will have his hot streaks. He still swings at pitches too early. We can go down the list here. Not the problem. But my point being here, if you're going to improve from Nick Castellanos, you obviously have to lose Nick Castellanos. So you have to get a better right fielder, a guy that can perform better. That's sort of what the entire holdup with the Alec Bohm trade conversation was at third base. Is Alec Bohm perfect? Absolutely not. Is there a legitimate case to say they need to find an improvement at third baseman? Yes, but it's hard to do that, man. Alec Bohm is a fine baseball player, and that's kind of where the Phillies have found themselves across the board. They've got too many good but not great baseball players, and some of those good baseball players are paid to be great baseball players. A guy like Trey Turner, I get he's tearing the cover off the baseball, but he's still the worst defensive shortstop in baseball. He's still a guy who can't carry a lineup in the way that you hope for and see on players like Bryce Harper and like Kyle Schwarber. So while I get there's a lot of problems with this Phillies team, I do think they're at the spot where you got to step up to the table and pay Kyle Schwarber what he's worth. He's going to get out there and test that open market. He's going to see what sort of monstrous contract that he can bring in. But how much would it hurt if we're sitting here in October of next season and watching Kyle Schwarber's bang home runs for the Dodgers or the Mets or whoever else that you want to list down this? Maybe he returns to the Cubs, could be kind of fun there, but I want him in Philadelphia here. I think they mishandled this from start to finish here. I think that this contract extension simply should have happened already. And if it is a 1 year that we're hung up on, that's what the price point, the drawing point, what the line the Phillies were unwilling to cross, that's just unacceptable. For an organization that does have deep pockets, that does have an owner that's willing to spend and cares about baseball, It's pretty frustrating to me how much they have not utilized that. They should be finding ways, making sure that you are taking care of your key players, and it just feels like that is not happening, certainly in Kyle Schwarber's case. And if you're Schwarber right now, take a look at this Phillies team surrounding you. Is this exactly what fires you up, the guys you want to go to battle with? Again, the only player on the team with an above 500 slugging percentage. It has been great this year. The production just is not there, and that is not a Kyle Schwarber thing. That is a rest of the Phillies lineup and organization type conversation. So not great news in the world of the Phillies as it pertains to Kyle Schwarber there. I do hope that changes, but I do think we're not at a point where there's just going to be an extension signed this year. He's going to play out the remainder of the season. He's already 20 home runs deep. He could, if he finishes off the season with the best statistical year of his career, he's going to cash out and make a ton of money. 4 years, $79 million. We're talking about like double that from a price point perspective as a starting point would be my guess for what Kyle Schwarber ultimately gets. We will see what happens, but I sure do hope it is in red pinstripes and the Phillies do find a way to not absolutely blow this one. But let me know what you guys think on the Schwarber conversation as a whole and really dig in on that conversation about, is this an end of an era? That's sort of what it's starting to feel like watching this season. And it's a pretty heartbreaking and frustrating reality to be looking down. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. As always, appreciate each and one of you guys tuning in. If you have not already, make sure you are smashing that subscribe button. Again, 72% of you guys watching these videos have not subscribed just yet. So let's keep this Phillies Digest family growing. There are better days ahead, and appreciate you guys for tuning in as always. Peace.